What is going on, guys? Money Webby here, back again on Wednesday. Got a nice 3-game slate here tonight. I got 6 of my favorite plays on it with my money 6. Some interesting games here tonight. Definitely blowout potential in Milwaukee with Blake Griffin. Highly questionable. There was reports that came out that he might be done the rest of the series, so I'm assuming he's going to be out for tonight. Obviously, we'll get a confirmation later on in the day, probably. But as of right now, it's looking like he is out. So that means I think that game's going to be a blowout. I mean, Detroit just way undermanned in that matchup with no Blake Griffin. And we have a low-scoring contest possible in not Washington, in Boston and Indiana there. Indiana just couldn't hit anything. I think they'll bounce back a little bit in the offensive end, though. And then Utah-Houston is probably the popular game for good reason. Should be the most competitive, high-scoring of the games. So that's kind of where I'm going to be eyeing for the most part. Last night, up and down night, 4 of the 6 players did really well. And Kawhi, McCollum, Gary Harrison, Mo Harkless. But then Enes Kanter got in foul trouble. Really disappointed that he wasn't able to do anything on the offensive rebounding kind of end. They were kind of like double teaming him off the glass. I didn't expect him to do that. So that sucked. And then Russell Westbrook couldn't hit a jump shot to save his life. I think he started 2 for 6 from the field, and he ended up 5 for 20. So he was god awful after the first quarter. That really sucked. But hopefully we can have a better all-around night tonight. I mean, it was still pretty solid besides those 2 disappointing guys. But drop a like in the video if you're enjoying the content. Ready to win some money here tonight, and let's get right into it. First guy up, I'm going to go with James Harden again here as the top scoring guy on the slate. Really good upside every single matchup. They did get mad about their defense against them in game 1. But still, he wasn't that efficient. I mean, 11 for 26, 4 for 10 for 3, and he didn't really even get many opportunities at the line. So, I mean, he didn't play an amazing game. So I don't think Utah should be that mad about it. But still, DraftKings-wise, he filled it up 29, 8, and 10 with the block, and that was only in 33 minutes because they did handle him pretty easily. I expect this game to stay a little bit closer. I think James Harden will carry the load again here. Maybe those role players don't score as efficiently as they did in game 1, and he gets it done. I mean, 10,700. No one has quite the upside, I would say, on the slate. The only one that can kind of compete with him, I would say, is Giannis, if that game does somehow stay close. Obviously, if Blake Griffin does play, a much better chance of it staying close. But James Harden, like him a lot, can definitely go over 60 DraftKings points if this game is more competitive tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in there as my first guy. I'm going to go with Rudy Gobert here at 7,800. Had a really good game in game 1, 22 and 12, really efficient. Had 1 assist, 1 block. He definitely could get another block or so in this matchup as well. I think he can just be a nice kind of safety valve for us. I don't see his upside being crazy. I wouldn't say I could see him going over 50. I feel like he's a nice little 40-point guy here tonight, and he is the only thing that can really keep him from his floor is if he does get in foul trouble, if they get down really big early. But like I said, I think Utah will battle a little bit better here tonight. They are one of the better teams since the All-Star break. I mean, I don't see them getting blown out back-to-back games. They're a pretty solid team, and Rudy Gobert had one of the best kind of draws for them game 1. So I think he'll be pretty efficient here again, be able to get a good amount of rebounds. I mean, the Rockets do shoot a ton of threes, so a lot of rebounds to be had if they're off their game. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in there as my second guy. Then I'm going to go with Ricky Rubio that same game. He was their second best player, I would say, stats-wise, behind Gobert with 31 DraftKings points. Played 32 minutes. That's really good. Rubio's kind of a guy that typically gets around 28 minutes, I would say. If you just look at his minutes per game average on the season, 27.6 and 28.8 DraftKings points per game. So obviously he's a guy that can be very active with his numbers, and with him getting a little uptick in minutes so far in game 1 and probably in game 2, as their bench point guard play is definitely not anything to be fond of. It's not very good at all. So I think Rubio over 30 minutes can fill it up with the rebounds, assists. Maybe he can be a little bit consistent again scoring wise. I mean, he put up 15 points. You don't expect that much scoring from Rubio, but that's a good sign going forward. And at 5,700, nice price tag for a guy that has that kind of 13, 8, and like 7 type of upside. So I like him a good amount here in this game. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in there as my third guy. I'm going to go with Miles Turner. He played absolutely terrible in game one. But as we saw yesterday, some guys that had really tough game ones really bounced back in game two. We saw Kyle Lowry really struggle game one, bounced back nicely yesterday. Also, Paul George had a nice little bounce back, even though they lost in that game. Not sure if there was anyone else. I guess Kawhi kind of stepped up after game one. And stuff like that. So kind of an situation here where I think Miles Turner, that's kind of one of their biggest problems, I would say. Him and Bogdanovich, their two top scorers since Oladipo went down, were just really not aggressive enough, I would say, and they weren't getting into the groove enough on the offensive end. So I think the Pacers are going to make that a priority to get Miles Turner going on offense, get Bogdanovich going on offense, feed the offense through them, and he has really good upside if that's the case. I mean, he was a guy that was putting up huge numbers in some games before the playoffs. 41 against Detroit, 39, 36 against his Boston team, 40, 40. So he's having some big games heading into the playoffs. We know he has that kind of upside, and that 6,100, he could be a slate breaker if he gets over 40 DraftKings points with one of those big lines. He's very active on the defensive end, so I'm going to go ahead and lock him in there as my fourth guy. I'm going to go with Bogdanovich, like I mentioned. Another guy here with really solid upside if he can get his shot going. We know that he wasn't great game one. Like I said, some guys are just a little bit more prone to kind of get it going when they're off in their first game, especially a shooter like Bogdanovich. I mean, we saw Jamal Murray kind of happen as well in game one. I guess he was really bad game one, really struggled with his jump shot. I guess he was doing extra work in the gym before game two. Was terrible the first three quarters, then caught absolute fire in the fourth quarter. So Bogdanovich, one of those streaky scorers as well, one of those streaky shooters. I think he can really get it going in this game if he does hit a few shots. And they're going to need his offense in this matchup against Boston, as we saw them only put up 74 points in game one. So if he can get it going, a much more competitive game, higher scoring game, and at 5,500 is a nice price tag. That was priced for a guy that was priced around 6,500 like the whole entire kind of second stretch of the season without Oladipo. So I'm gonna go ahead and lock him in there as my fifth guy. And for my final guy, Luke Kennard, the only bright spot for the Pistons game one was him. Stepped it nicely, had a really good scoring game. 21 points, 8 for 14 from the field, and 4 for 5 from three. This is a guy that was on fire even heading into the postseason. With 4 for 8 from three against New York, 5 for 9 against Memphis. So if he can keep that scoring going, that shooting going, he can return some nice value at 4,100. They're going to need him on the court to give some offense if Blake Griffin is out. He's probably like their third best scorer besides Blake Griffin, Reggie Jackson, I guess Drummond as well. But Kennard's more of a pure scorer. Drummond's more just kind of like a put-back kind of guy, just like a dunk kind of guy. So I wouldn't even call him a scorer. But Kennard can score in bunches if he gets it going. So they're going to need his offense, like I said. And he's going to have to play more and put up a lot of shots in this game. So I'm going to go ahead and lock him in there as my final guy. So that's the money six. You got James Harden, Bogdanovich, Kennard, Rudy Gobert, Ricky Rubio, and Miles Turner. Hope you enjoyed it. Slap a like if you did. Really appreciate all the likes. Helps me out a lot. And subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Continue to get these NBA playoff DFS plays. So like I said, really good options here tonight. I think Harden could go over 60. Bogdanovich could go over 30. Kennard could flirt with 30. Gobert could go over 40. Rubio could go over 30. Miles Turner has 35 to 40 point upside as well. I mean, the Celtics were their kind of worst against centers during the whole regular season. So those are the plays. Good luck here tonight. Hope they work out for you. Hopefully we have all of the plays work out. Hopefully not crazy blowouts besides maybe that Milwaukee game. I'll be glad to see that be a blowout as these plays don't favor that game too much. So good luck, and we'll see you back here again next time.